The Tigers lose in the nation's capital. The Indians continue to roll Tribe. And the Mudhens continue to lose again. I love you guys, and welcome into this special edition of All Andy Alfred right here on Clay Fan 2-3. I am your host, Andy Alfred, welcoming you in. We're back down here in the interview loft again for a second interview. Coming into the beautiful Studios 10 here in East Toledo, of course, is a man who making the second trip into the studio. He is a blog writer for Rational. His blog title is Rational Pastimes on MLB's blog page, and he's here to talk about the first month of baseball season. So I want to welcome into my show on All Andy Alfred today, Nick DeVera. Nick, welcome into the program.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
It's good to have you here, and we're going to talk some baseball, of course, and we're going to break down what happened last night, and of course, the first month of the season. So first of all, we got to talk about the Tigers. A lot of people saying this is a preview matchup of what the World Series is going to be like, as they won yesterday 3-1 over the Nationals beat the Tigers 3-1. Ryan Zimmerman he's 6-1 with a 1.59 ERA. Your opinion on Ryan Zimmerman so far?
Well, he's been the guy they thought he was going to be. He had a good breakout year last year with the Nationals. Of course, they won upward 90s games. He's a good pitcher. And, Nationals, a little bit of a slide. They're another couple games over, but they have a negative run differential. But they're still a good team. They're playing a very good team in the Tigers today.
Yeah, they're a very good team. And then the strikeout magnet of Anibal Sanchez getting the loss. He goes to 3-3 with a 1.79 ERA. And, Bryce Harper is just something to watch. He's got 10 home runs already, and we're only a month into the season. You think that he's going to cool off sooner or later?
Oh, definitely. He's a very talented young man, obviously. But baseball's a game of cycles, hot and cold, hot and cold. So he will heat up and cool off. That's just how it is.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you on that. But so today you have the Tigers concluding this quick 2-game series against the Washington Nationals. It'll be Doug Fister on the hill. He's 4-0 with a 2.48 ERA. He'll take on Dan Herron, who's 3-3 with a 5.01 ERA. You look at this pitching matchup, it looks pretty good on paper because Herron is halfway decent, and Doug Fister is the same way as well, too.
I'll definitely give the advantage to Fister. Herron, in his prime, was a pretty good guy, not living up to what his record should be. I got to give this to Detroit today. I think they're going to pull out with the win.
Yeah, and then they get ready to open up a 3-game set at home against the Cleveland Indians, which, by the way, one of the hottest teams, I believe, in all of baseball right now, as they totally lit up the A's last night and tonight. So we'll break down what happened last night. Controversial call in the sixth inning with the instant replay rule. Hernandez calling it basically a double after the manager of the A's decided that we should review it, see if it is a home run call. Came back. Totally blew the call. Your opinion about what you saw, because we saw some of the highlights today before we came on the air. Your opinion about that?
Well, your show might get fined for this, but Angel Hernandez is probably one of the worst umpires in baseball.
Calling him out already here, folks.
Hernandez it's his hobby to blow calls. And I know they said it's up to his discretion as the crew chief to make the call, but he absolutely blew it. And Oakland was robbed.
Oakland was robbed. Do you think that this would have an impact later on? Let's say if this happened in a playoff series or even a World Series, what would be the action for Hernandez?
I think if he blew the same call in the playoffs, he'd probably get fined. I think for now he'll probably just get a stern talking to. But he'll probably get fined if this is a playoff game.
Well, that blown call, cost the A's the win yesterday as the Indians beat them 4-3. Justin Masterson, this kid is pretty unstoppable right now. He's 5-2 with a 3.67 ERA. You look at him; he's got a great fastball and he's got a great cutter too at the same time. And the A's were just surprised. We're just surprised that Masterson was just dealing like he was last night. And then you have Griffin getting the loss. He's now 3-3 with a 3.83 ERA. Chris Perez gets his 5th save of the season. Swishalicious homered, his 4th of the season, and Carlos Santana. But the problem I have right now is that people aren't showing up at Progressive Field. You had 9,000 the last 2 games. You had 11,000 last night. And today you had almost 12,000 at the game today. And we'll break that down in just a second. Game time, 2 hours and 26 minutes. Now, the return of Bartolo Colon. to Cleveland. Very interesting to see because I was figuring that Cologne would be halfway decent in the game. He got lit up today.
Yeah, he was very productive last year with Oakland. Not too good today. I haven't checked his year's standings or how he's in this year, but yeah, not good today.
Today, after today's game, he goes now to 3-2 with a 4.57 ERA. Scott Kazmir gets the win. He goes to 2-1 with a 4.87 ERA. Donaldson homered for Oakland as they lost today, 9-2. Kipnis, Swisher, and Reynolds. These three guys have been the home run hitters for the Indians so far this season, and it's just surprising enough. Other scores that happened yesterday in the world of baseball: you had Atlanta beating up on the Cincinnati Reds 7-2. Seattle was a winner over Pittsburgh 2-1. St. Louis pulling a win out of Wrigley Field with a win 5-4 over the Cubbies. Minnesota was a winner. Speaking of Minnesota, it was a high-powered offensive game. 15 runs put up on the board for Minnesota over the Boston Red Sox as they won 15-8.
Yeah, the Twins, we knew going into the year they were going to hit Mauer, Morneau, Willingham, Domitz, Carroll, Plouffe, Hicks, Parmalee. They're going to hit.
Mm-hmm. And then also you had the Philadelphia Phillies losing to the San Francisco Giants 4-3. Baltimore was a winner over Kansas City 5-3. You had the Chicago White Sox, especially performance by Jake Peavy yesterday was outstanding by him. As he only gave up three runs as the White Sox beat the Mets yesterday 6-3. I think we'll get into a little bit of all the teams that we need to talk about. We also had Toronto losing to Tampa Bay 10-4. The Angels were a loser to the Houston Astros 3-1. This Angel team is sliding off the tracks. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, big money and not producing.
Yeah, that's all what the key is. And the Yankees were a winner 3-2. And now, so get into this. The AL Central looks like this going into today's action. You have the Tigers on top of the AL Central. They're 19-12, and they're 8-2 in their last 10. Kansas City is one of the surprising teams for me. They're still in the hunt. They're 17-13, a game and a half out, 5-5 in their last 10. But they're getting the production in like the weirdest ways, and especially sometimes their games have been called out because of weather, called out because of rain. But they've been making it up, and they're producing.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have gone to the year thinking that Jeremy Guthrie and
James Shields.
Well, Shields is productive anyway, but Irvin Santana, these guys, and Mendoza, these guys are pitching well, which is, I think, surprising most people.
Yeah, Cleveland is right behind Kansas City. Well, they're ahead of now Kansas City after today's win. They're now 18-14. They're a game and a half out as well, too, but Kansas City has a game this evening. Cleveland is 9-1. What can we say about this Indians team? This club is just finding ways to win.
Well, they're like the Twins. You knew they were going to hit, load with power, and they were. I think their pitching had a better chance to produce than Minnesota's. I think we said here in March that the rotation could be good, and so far, hey, it's been pretty good.
It's been pretty good too. Minnesota's 15-15, 3.5 out, and then the Chicago White Sox being one of the teams that I was kind of picking towards the top, and they would be contending. Right now, they're 14-18. They're 5.5 out. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They have picked up a little bit of the pace, even though they lost the other night, not last night, but the other night to the Mets. What can you say about? Because Chris Sale right now is struggling. Yeah. You can tell Sale's struggling, and they can't. They're not getting the timely hitting at the same time too.
You nailed it on the head. They're not hitting. The rotation, except for Gavin Floyd, has been overall pretty good. The bullpen has been a little shaky. The defense has been shaky, which was their big strengths last year. Mm-hmm. But they're just not hitting, except for Connor Gillespie, who's been a huge surprise they got from the Giants. And Rios, they're not producing.
Yeah. What are your surprise teams so far in the American League altogether? What are the three surprising teams that you're like, wow, this is not what I predicted in the month of March when we were coming into spring training?
Yankees, Red Sox, Twins.
All surprising?
Yeah.
Really?
I thought Twins would lose 110 games this year.
You thought the Twins were going to lose 110 games? Well, that's what I think of the Astros. I thought the Astros were going to do the same thing. But if they win today, they surpass the LA Angels. The three worst teams, I think, are Chicago right now because of their struggling at finding the timely hitting, and their rotation's good. It's okay. all the millions of dollars you pour into the Angel organization, that is just surprising that's not coming together, especially when you get Hamilton in the offseason. And another team that's surprising is the Toronto Blue Jays. The Jays are struggling. They're at the bottom of the East. Everybody picked that they were going to be the team to beat in the East because they go out and get all the players. But, the problem I have with that is like it's the Marlin curse. You move the team you basically pick up the whole Florida Marlin team and move them to up to Canada. You're having the same problem there.
Yeah, I figured Toronto would start slow, and they start slow. I figured they take off at some point, but they're getting to that. They're like Anaheim. They're getting to that close range where it might be too late.
Yeah.
To come back.
What do you have in the NL as your three good teams so far this season? I mean, you have to have Pittsburgh as one of them because if they're competing so far right now in the Central over a St. Louis club that's actually pretty good at the same time as well.
I think my three teams in the National League are probably Colorado, Pittsburgh, as you noted, and I don't know. I think everyone else is kind of falling in line. I think there's a lot more disappointments in the NL than there are producers.
Producers? So what is the disappointments in the NL then? You have the Dodgers, of course.
Dodgers. Washington, who has a winning record, but they said they have a negative run differential, which is not good. And I figured the Reds would produce better.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on the Reds and the Dodgers. I think Philadelphia too. The struggling of Roy Halladay so far has been one thing. Also with Cliff Lee not finding the timely pitching and giving up those runs, especially against Cleveland. When they came to Cleveland and basically got manhandled by the Indians, getting outscored like 20-3 in their two games. It just surprised me a lot that was good, that happened because you figure the Phillies would be honestly a contending club. Right now they're third in the NL East, and right behind them is the Mets, and then you have the Marlins, and up top, of course, the top of the division you have the Braves and the Washington Nationals. But like you said, the three surprising teams right now are Pittsburgh, Colorado, and I got Arizona. Arizona's been a very interesting club too. They got 19 wins so far in this season. And if you look at what Kirk Gibson and his club has been doing as of late, they look like they're ready to go. But the problem is they're running into a team in the New York Giants, and you're also running into the Colorado Rockies, who are also really good too. And for the AL, we forgot the three interesting teams so far you have. For me, it's Baltimore. Baltimore on top of that division is a surprise. And then right behind them is Boston. Of course, Cleveland with their hot streak as well too, and then you have the Oakland Athletics, who you wouldn't expect Oakland to be up top in that division. You would figure they would be at mid-tier probably about this time of year, but it's not total polar opposite. You have Texas still on top of the division. You have Oakland, then you have Seattle, then LA, and then Houston, of course.
Yeah, the West is finishing this year. Oakland was my pick to win. I figured Texas would probably finish second. Yeah, Texas still good. A lot of people like to write them off because they lost Hamilton, but they're still a good team. And they lost Natalie, but they're still a good team.
Yeah, Ron Washington will always find a way to win ball games, and that's a key thing. Well, let's get into this really quick. The Mud Hens were a loser last night, 3-0. As a programming note, I always like to tell you guys, I love you guys, but they need to fire Phil Nevin. It's all through the Tiger organization now, of course. They only are in the last season, combining these two seasons. The Mud Hens and the Mud Hen seasons for the last 2 years, Phil Nevin is 55-102. In their last 64 games, 64 innings of baseball, they've only scored 4 runs.
Wow.
4 runs.
Wow.
In their I've been compiling the stats, and it's just unbelievable to say the least. Last night they lost to Rochester 3-0. Gibson gets the win for Rochester. He's 2-4 with a 3.32 ERA. Garcia gets the loss. He goes to 0-3 with a 4.24. Big Lee homered, but then he in the next half inning he rolled his wrist. It was taken out on precautionary measures in front of 4,276 game time, 2 hours 28 minutes. Now tonight is the end of the homestand, hypothetically, because then they go to Fort in Indianapolis and then they come on back home. Of course, they'll play Rochester tonight. Hendricks for Rochester is 1-2 with a 4.37 ERA. Alvarez is 1-2 with a 1.29 ERA. Game time 6:30 on BCSN. You look at this Mud Hen club, and it's just I had the opportunity to see them play the Charlotte Knights this past weekend, and the White Sox affiliate looks good. The Twins affiliate looks good. The Clippers look outstanding right now, and Indianapolis looks good too. It's just the Tiger organization, And what surprises me a lot is that Quentin Berry's not producing. That's what it really is for me.
Well, Quentin Berry, I know you might get mad at me for this, but he really overachieved last year in Detroit.
Yeah.
He had a really high BABIP.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah.
But I think the Mud Hen struggle isn't really much. I mean, yeah, Melvin could be a better manager. But
Nevin.
Nevin?
Yeah, Nevin.
Okay, sorry. Probably
Melvin would be probably better than Nevin, probably.
But Detroit actually ended the year with the worst ranked farm system because they gutted a lot of it. Getting for like Anibal Sanchez and all that. Trading for a couple guys last year or 2 years ago, sorry, when they got Wilson Betemit. So it's not really all on him.
Yeah, I know. I understand, but it's just that you're basically, if you're a season ticket holder for the Mud Hens, you're going to the games and you're seeing the same crap over and over again. You're seeing a losing club, and that's just surprising enough. This guy is also a little bit into the hockey as well too. He's also one of the a little bit of a hockey guy too. Series now you have Boston and Toronto. Boston takes the series lead now, 3-1, going back to Boston for Game 5. Thoughts on the Bruins so far? Do you think this is a team that's finally clicking?
Yeah, they look pretty good. I gotta give it to Leafs for making it for the first time in almost a decade.
Yeah,
gotta give it to them. But the Bruins are just a class of their own. They won the Cup 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
so,
yes.
They're still pretty good.
Yeah. Washington losing to the Rangers. Series is now tied at 2 games apiece, going back to Washington. LA is on top of the series, 3-2, as they beat the St. Louis Blues in overtime yesterday, 3-2. And then the Anaheim Ducks finding a way at home to beat the Detroit Red Wings to take the 3-2 series lead. Now you got the problem going back to Detroit, trying to finish this up in Game 6. And then you have Game 7, of course, will be back in Anaheim as well. So your take on, you think that this is going to be the end of the Detroit run because from this weekend?
Probably. I know this is the very anti-Red Wing show. But I think they'll win at home. Force Game 7.
Of course.
And Anaheim will probably win. The Red Wings, while old and rebuilding, are still a crafty team that know how they're resilient. So I'll give them the Game 7. I think they lose out.
Tonight you got the Islanders taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. That series is tied at 2 games apiece. Ottawa's basically going to put the nail in the coffin tonight, and they'll take on the Montreal Canadiens. They lead 3-1 over the Montreal Canadiens, and I think Montreal is basically going to be done after this game because this is in Montreal, but I think Ottawa will find a way to win this hockey game. And, of course, you have Minnesota taking on Chicago. Chicago on 3-1 on Minnesota Wild. We know how I feel about the Minnesota Wild. They should not be in the playoffs. They'll probably get beat out tonight and Chicago will take the series. You could have a possibility, and now this is a possibility, you could have 3 out of the 4 Western Conference teams being in California. Your opinion about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Obviously not for the other teams in the West, but I mean it's good for California. Yeah, a lot of California sports teams.
NBA for you. The Bulls were a loser yesterday, 115-78 over the Miami Heat. Now they'll go to the United Center to battle it out. And no games tonight in the NBA, of course. Golden State was a winner in overtime over the San Antonio Spurs, 100-91. Well, do you have anything else you would like to add, Nick? I know you've been writing a lot lately on rational pastimes, especially throughout this season so far.
Well,
you have any expectations going into what we're getting into the meat of the season, baseball season?
I think Washington and Chicago, the White Sox will pick up. I think Atlanta will coast a little bit. Atlanta's still a very talented team. I think they come back down. I think the Dodgers at some point should get it together, but they're getting close to that zone, like the Angels and the Angels are.
You see the Indians starting to struggle, starting to fall a little bit.
Yeah, they're gonna live and die with that rotation. They're gonna hit. That's not even a question. But they're gonna live and die with their rotation. I think the rotation's overachieving a little bit. It's okay, but I think they'll fall back.
Well, that was Nick DeVera. He is from Rational Pastimes blog. It's at rationalpastimesblog.mlb.com.
Rationalpastime.mlblog.com.
mlblog.com. Nick, it's been a pleasure having you in the office.
Thanks for
And
having
of
me,
course, very welcome. And of course, you'll see me tomorrow for another edition of All Andy Alfred. I'm Andy Alfred. I hope you have a terrific night. And as always, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together. And especially to the Tigers, Indians, White Sox, and Nationals. Victory is sweetest when you have tasted defeat. Have a nice night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow for another edition of All Andy Alfred.